You know, we've been talking about signs and wonders. And honestly, I was struggling, not struggling, I was trying to make a decision before we started last Sunday about there's another series I really, really want to do, and we're going to do that next month. And I was wondering, God, is this what we need to hear right now? And last week we shared about the man he was blind, right? And Jesus walked along, mud on the ground, healed him, and just had got a text that was just a confirming text, like, man, that was what we needed to hear last week. And this week, we're here in the book of John, and I want you to turn with me to John chapter 6 for just a moment. And we're going to talk just about another miraculous thing that took place. But like I just shared earlier, in John 20, right at the end of the book of John, remember John, let me just help you a little bit. If you don't know who John is, Jesus had 12 disciples. Out of the 12, he had 3 that he was really close with. And out of the 3, he had the one that he was the closest to. You can call him Jesus' best friend. You can call him the lead disciple. You can call him whatever you want. But John is the man that he's writing this book, firsthand account of things that took place. And I love what he says at the end, that the disciples saw Jesus do so many miraculous signs in addition to the ones that were recorded, but these were written. So there was a reason. There's a reason that we read of the miraculous works of Jesus Christ, and that's in John 20, verse 31. It says, "But these were written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that believing in him you will have life by the power of his name." Let me just tell you, there's a reason that those signs are in there, so that we would believe and that we would trust. There's reasons that Jesus still heals today, so that we believe and we trust. Let me just tell you, he's a real God that really wants to do miraculous and marvelous things in your life. So last week we heard about the man at the pool of Bethesda, and this week I want to shift our focus just a little bit to John chapter 6. John chapter 6 starts out, and this amazing miracle happens, right? Anybody heard of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish? Everybody know that story, right? I mean, it's just amazing, right? I mean, how are we going to feed all these people, you know? And Jesus says, you know, disciples like, hey, let's send them away. And Jesus said, we can't send them away, you know? And they're like, what are we going to do? In the midst of a problem, in the midst of a crisis, there was a solution that Jesus had. After that, there's this event that takes place, and maybe you're familiar with this. In John chapter 6, verse 16, John chapter 6, verse 16, it says, that evening, Jesus' disciples went down to the shore to wait for him. They would have been tired. It would have been a long day. Ministry has a way of kind of taking it out of you, right? I mean, it just they would have used a lot of their physical strength. It would have been a long day of sorts. And all of a sudden, but as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat. They did the next thing. They got into the boat to head across the lake towards Capernaum. Right? Here they go, and now they're going to do, like, Jesus hasn't caught up with us yet. He will. We're going to just keep going. We're going to keep doing what we need to do. And then it says in verse 18, it says, soon a gale or a big wave, the storm began to sweep. You know, the gale swept down, this wind swept down upon them, and the sea grew very rough. All of a sudden, I don't know if you've been on a boat, and it gets choppy, and then you know, if you've gone deep sea fishing, you know, you probably could tell some stories about how bad the water was and how crazy it got. Well, here they are, professional fishermen on this journey. And then in verse 19, they had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly, everyone say suddenly. Suddenly they saw something that they would not have naturally or normally have seen, right? Wasn't part of what they had normally done. They had never seen anything like this before. All of the sudden, in the midst of everything that they were doing, they're tired, they've done ministry, they've seen Jesus do this miraculous miracle, now they're on their way to the next place, and all of the sudden they saw Jesus, which they didn't know was Jesus. They saw a figure walking on the water towards the boat, and guess what they did? Same thing that you and I would do. Get me out of this boat. I'm going to swim, right? I mean, you see something coming towards you, right? You're trapped, right? I don't know, some of you may feel like you're in a situation right now and it just feels like you're trapped. There's no way to escape. There's no next step. What do? We can't row harder, right? We can't really jump out of the boat. That's not going to solve anything. And the problem just keeps coming towards us. The situation just keeps coming towards us. Have you ever been overcome with fear? Where you're just like, I don't know what we're going to do. We try to figure out, plan B and plan C and plan Z has been put into place. And we still haven't solved our problem. We needed these finances. We got this situation in our family. We're trying everything we can. And you know what? Jesus loves those situations. Not because he likes to see us squirm or likes to see us walk through difficult situations, but he knows that in those moments, that's actually where he shines. That's actually where he does some of the most amazing things. So now this thing is coming towards them, right? I mean, this ghost of sorts. They don't know what it is. It's coming towards them. They're terrified. They're in the boat. And all of a sudden, in the midst of all that, he called out to them, and he says what? Don't be afraid. And I love that he doesn't just say, don't be afraid, but he says, don't be afraid, I am here. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Whatever situation you're in right now, Jesus would say to you today, right now, don't be afraid, I'm here. I'm here. I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't abandoned you, I'm here. With our kids, we've got little ones, so my son's, he's of that age where he's still kind of like learning. Mia's older, she's 8, she's got the world figured out at 8, or almost 8, she'll be 8 next month. But Jeremiah's still on that time where he's still growing. He's 6, just 4 years old, right? And many times, I've told you before, I'll put him to bed, and the thing though that I've noticed with him is sometimes he'll be playing, he'll turn around, he can't see me, and then he panics, and he comes running looking for me. Where are you? Did you leave me? Did you abandon me? Right? And I have to tell him, no, I'm right here. I just went to the car, put something in the car, I'm coming back. I haven't left you, I haven't abandoned you, right? Jesus is saying the same thing to us. I haven't left you, I'm right here. In the midst of whatever you're facing, I need you to hear this. He's right here. He's right there in your life, and he's saying, don't be afraid. I know that you have tried to figure out the solution. I know that maybe the doctor's report, and you're thinking, what can I do? I can't do anything. Maybe there's a situation in your body, maybe there's a situation in your finances, in your family, a relational issue, and you're saying, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything else. I don't know about you, but if I'm in a boat, I'm feeling pretty trapped while this is all happening. And Jesus assures them, and he says, first, don't be afraid. I am here. Then they were eager to let him in the boat, right? Can you see this playing out? This thing's coming. They don't know what it is. And all of a sudden, he goes, hey guys, it's me. I just want to let you know, it's me. Don't be afraid. I'm here. And then they say, okay, now we want you on the boat, Jesus. Get on the boat with us, right? Fix the problem, right? You ever have that happen? We were like, oh, Jesus, I don't know how I'm going to make it. And he goes, I got a solution. You're like, Jesus, get over here. Solve this problem. I need you right now, Lord. I need you in the boat with me, right? I want you to be a part of this journey. Lord, we don't know what to do. And isn't it interesting? I love that, how Jesus works. He takes your profession where you're an expert at it, and he says, watch this. Life's going to get tough. What you used to be so good at is going to get hard. You're going to say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix it. I used to be able to solve my own problems, but I can't with this thing. This thing's greater than anything I've faced. These are professional fishermen. They're on the water. They've been in storms before, and all of a sudden, in this moment, they see something that scares them half to death. It's Jesus, and they say, get in the boat, Jesus. And immediately, they arrived at their destination. There's so much you could just read into just that. They see him. I mean, here's the funniest thing, is sometimes we get so focused on the problem, we forget actually that we're moving closer to the destination of where God's got us. Sometimes we get so consumed with all the other things that are taking place. And I want you to understand that the buildup of this particular moment, remember, John said, I've told you all of these things so that you would realize who Jesus is. John is laying out all these things that Jesus has done so that we would realize who Jesus is, that he is God's son. Maybe that doesn't hit home for you, that he is the solution to every single one of your problems. Maybe that's what you need to hear. John is saying, I need you to grasp and understand he can solve the problem that you have. In fact, he doesn't just solve it with an answer or solution that you could come up with or anyone else could come up with, but he's actually wants to perform a miraculous sign, something that you've never seen, something that you can't figure out. The Bible says that his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. I don't know if you ever thought about that. I think about that all the time. I said, Jesus, I've been trying to figure out how to fix this, and I can't figure out, and he reminds me, yeah, because my ways are different than yours. I got a different system. I got a different network. In fact, I got this thing taken care of. Trust me in the process here. But when you see this, you hear the story of the disciple who, they were trained, right? And in the middle of this storm, in the middle of this lake, in the middle of the night, this figure is calling out to them, and it's Jesus in the midst of all that. And he's saying, hey guys, don't be afraid. I'm right here. We hear this story. Maybe you hear this story for the first time. Maybe you've never heard that story before. Can I just tell you? Maybe you can explain some of the other things away, but you have to make a decision when you come to this story in the Bible. Listen to me. You have to make a decision when you get to this point in the Bible, and you have to say, I either believe that Jesus literally is God and can do anything, because nobody's walked on water, right? Has anyone walked on water? I mean, I know I haven't, right? I've floated in water, I haven't walked on water, right? I remember, every time I read this story, I think of Brother Lloyd Dodd, right? This older gentleman, he passed away, he's in heaven now, and he told me one day, he said, I was at this event, my wife and I were at this little event, and it was like an all-week thing, and the women had to sleep in one area, and the men had to sleep in the other area, and I couldn't sleep because I wasn't sleeping next to my wife, and here I am, and I went out towards, there was a little lake and a dock, and I'm standing there, and I can't sleep, and it's like 2 a.m, and I'm like, Jesus, I believe you can do anything, and he's like, I'm just talking to Jesus, I believe, God, you can do anything, and he said, Jesus, I even believe that you could make me walk on water, right? And all of a sudden, he gets a running start, and he goes to walk on water. Anybody know what happened? He sunk to the bottom, all right? Just in case you were wondering, right? But there's only been 2 people that's ever done that we know of, right? I don't know anybody else that walked on water. Jesus did it, and then there's another part of this story. We're going to read about a second person. Now, it's interesting that John actually doesn't unfold the second part, and I don't know why. He doesn't share this, but we actually have to go to a different passage. We have to go over to Matthew. When you look in your Bible, it's kind of towards the middle of the Bible. It's kind of a little past the halfway point is where what we call the New Testament starts. This is all the things that occurred when Jesus came on the scene. And there's these 4 books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they actually outline the story of Jesus, right? We call them the Gospels. Well, the very first one is Matthew, and Matthew, though, tells of this same story, but he adds another detail in there, which is actually pretty important. And that detail, it says in Matthew 14, verse 25, it says, about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came towards them walking on the water. The disciples saw him walking on the water, and they were terrified, right? Which often happens when you see something that you don't know and you don't understand. Fear can overtake you in the moment in the midst of the storm. Fear can paralyze you. Fear can make you wonder if you were ever going to survive this. God, am I ever going to make it through? God, is this situation ever going to get resolved? God, is this relationship ever going to get fixed? And it continues in verse 26, and it says, in their fear, they cried out, it's a ghost, right? Which maybe is appropriate for this time of year. But Jesus spoke to them once, and he says, don't be afraid. He said, take courage, I am here. And this is the part that John leaves out, which is pretty amazing. Then Peter called to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you and walk on the water. Tell me to do this. Can you just imagine Jesus out there? He's probably not expecting, Peter, but maybe he is. I don't know. Peter was kind of crazy. And then all of a sudden, what does Jesus say? Jesus says, come on, let's go, Peter. So then Peter went over the side of the boat and he walked on the water towards Jesus. But then all of a sudden he did probably like you and I would. When he saw the storm and the winds and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. And he said, "Save me, Lord." And Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. And he says, "You have so little faith." I don't know, man. If someone got out of the boat and walked on water, I wouldn't be telling them they have little faith. I'd be saying, "Man, you did a great job. For a beginner, right? I mean, you did really good, right?" But Jesus says, "You have so little faith. Why did you doubt me?" Why did you doubt me? And he climbed back into the boat and the wind stopped. I always think it's interesting. The disciples then worshiped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. Isn't it interesting that when we go through those trials, those moments of fear, those moments where we're trapped, those moments that we're familiar with, but all of a sudden we can't see a way out, those moments that we can't figure out how to get from point A to point B, how we can, look, we want to solve our problems all the time. It's interesting that in this moment, Jesus says, "Why did you doubt me?" You see, he's always on this quest for trust. Why don't you trust me? What else do I have to do in your life for you to trust me? The truth is we forget, and the reason why we need to constantly say, "Jesus, I remember what you've done," is because we need to remind ourselves, I need to trust in Jesus. I need to trust in him. I need to trust. When he got into the boat, can you see those disciples? "Oh, Jesus, you are the man. You are amazing, God. I mean, you just fed over 5,000 people, and now you're walking on water. Man, you're really stretching us here." There's something to learn that we learn in the differences between these two stories that I think is absolutely key. The differences that we see here. Now we don't know why. You can go into the why John didn't put it in the Bible, right? Maybe he wanted to save Peter the embarrassment of the fact that he stepped out in faith, but he sank. Who knows why? But I want you to grasp this. He began to ask God for the courage to believe that God could do something even greater in his life. Do you notice what Peter says? "If it's really you, if this is real, tell me and I'll do it." That's pretty bold. "Jesus, if this is you, tell me and I'll do it." In any situation in our life, you're trying to figure out what your next step is, and you come up with an idea, you need to ask yourself, "Jesus, is this your idea or is this my idea? And if it's your idea, confirm it in my heart. Jesus, is this situation, is this relationship you? Is this such a job situation, is it you? Is this transition you? Is this situation I'm going, Lord, is this you or is this my best effort? Lord, Lord, if this is you, confirm it in my heart." And here's the main idea, that you and I step into the miraculous when we move beyond seeking God for comfort. And we begin to ask him for courage to believe that God can do something in us. You see, there has to be a shifting in our lives. Instead of just seeking God for God, Jesus, I need you to help me with this problem. Instead of just seeking him for comfort and seeking him to fix the problem and seeking him to pay the bill and seeking him to, get what you want, begin to seek him for the courage to believe. "Jesus, give me the courage to believe that you are who you say, or overwhelm my spirit to walk in faith and in trust. Let me be in tune with your Holy Spirit, Lord, to the place where I know, Lord, what you want me to do, where my confidence is in you and you alone." See, look, we go through seasons in our life where all the strength that we have is to sometimes you're so beaten down, you've walked through such a difficult time, and the only thing that you can simply do is just ask. You can simply say, "Jesus, Lord, you just comfort me in the midst of this need. I need your presence here in my life. I need you in my life, Lord, in this moment. And I'm asking you to carry me through this and take me from where I'm at to where you want me to be." But that's not the only interaction Jesus wants with you and him. He wants you to be men and women full of faith, trust, hope. And I want you to, sometimes we go through things and we're just like, "Lord, what are we going to do?" And it's an opportunity that Jesus actually wants to demonstrate his power in this world, in your situation, in what you're going through. And so I want to just look just real quick, just a couple of factors that we see where Peter, he steps into this next level of faith. Because let me just tell you, you and I we haven't figured this one out yet, right? I don't know the equation to walk on water. I can't tell you how many things you got to do to get to that place. But I'm going to just give these real quick, I promise you. The first thing here is expectation. I remember hearing you have to you have to have a level of expectation, right? Expectation is not like, I expect you, Jesus. It's actually, I have such hope and such faith in who you are and what you can do and what only you can do. I have this expectation, Lord, that when you step into this situation and this problem, you're going to solve it. I'm not even worried about it. I'm not even overwhelmed by it. In the midst of the fact that I'm in a little boat and fear is approaching me and the situation I don't understand and everything's out of control, I think we all can agree in the disciples' life in this very moment, they're on the boat and it's out of control. And when you're out of control, you're not thinking clearly. When life is out of control, you're not taking moments that you need to, moments spending with the Lord. You're not taking those moments. You're just trying to fix. And the disciples are desperately trying to fix their current situation. Can we row harder? Can we row faster? Can we throw things overboard? Oh my goodness, there's another level to this. What we actually see is that he had this expectation that because Jesus was who he said he was, that he could do a whole lot more than just calm the storm. He's like, if it's you, just tell me. If it's you, just tell me and I'll do it. I wonder some of us if we're there. Jesus, if it's you, I'm going to do what scares me half to death. I'm gonna do what I never thought I would do. I mean, Peter was an expert at staying in the boat, and now he's taking a step of faith outside the boat. And he could actually empower and even the weak, frail Simon Peter, he could actually empower him to do something absolutely incredible. Here's the thing, is that Jesus is still desperately desiring to move in and through your life, in through your current situation. Just take what you're walking through right now and say, Jesus, I have an expectation that you know how to solve this. Some of our lives they are so messed up and so intertwined in so many things. You're thinking, Jesus, I don't even know if you can untangle this. I don't even know if you can fix this. And yet that's exactly what he does. He says, listen, I want to step in. But Peter, his faith was different, wasn't it? He said, I've seen you do these things, and Lord, if you ask me, Lord, I'm going to, with expectation, because I believe in who you are, I'm going to take this step of faith, and I've never thought I'd ever do this ever before in my life. I've never done this in the past, but I'm going to take this step of faith, and I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to believe. And listen, for a moment, he takes this step. Can you just imagine him? If it's you, Jesus. You know what I mean? Like he's got one foot in, and then all of a sudden he's. Can you just imagine him? And he turns around and he's like, "It's really working. It's you, Jesus. You got this. Man, you're solving my problems. You are real, Lord. This thing. Can you just?" And he takes a step, and then all of a sudden he does what you and I would do. Because here's the truth is, you and I would probably do this. Hey, Jesus, is that you? Yeah, it's me. If you want me to come, I will. And Jesus says, why don't you come? And we go, just kidding, Jesus. I'm just messing with you. I just want to see if it was you. Sometimes we need to have a little kind of crazy faith. Because faith doesn't actually make any sense, does it? Peter stepped out of the boat and he said, man, my confidence is in you. I've seen you do so many things. I don't even know if there's anything you can't do. And in fact, I'm about to find out. And he takes a step. He's seeing Jesus do something he's never seen any person ever do before. And he said, Jesus, if that's you, I'll do what you say. Faith began to trigger expectation of what Jesus could do. And he lets go for a moment. Can I just say, Jesus is wanting to take you on this journey, and he's saying, listen, what you currently are walking through, have some expectation of what I can do in your life. Have some expectation of what only I can do in your life. Because there are certain things that, let me just tell you, you can love Jesus and know Jesus, and yet we're all so good at being in that boat and being like, I got it, Jesus. I'm going to just keep rowing. And he's like, you fool, you're going to die out in this water. I got it, Jesus. You know, we're working harder. Our solution to our problems is work harder. I'm going to fix me. I'm going to fix this problem. I'm going to lean into it harder. All along, Jesus is saying, would you just give up for a moment and trust me? Just give up for a moment. I'm trying. I've got this thing orchestrated, and I'm about to blow your mind if you'll let me. But some of us don't even let Jesus get in the boat. Jesus, I still got it. He's there, and he's like, I'm trying to climb in the boat. And you're like, get out of here, Jesus. I'm going to fix it. He's like, let me get in the boat. You know, I mean, he's like, let me solve the problem here. And you're like, no, I got it, Jesus. We laugh, but the truth is in our lives. That's what we walk out. And when Simon Peter says, he says, if you are real, then why don't we do something really cool? Let's do this thing. Can I just say, if he's real to you, ask him that Lord, what do you want to do in me? All cards on the table, anything you want to happen, whatever you want to do, Lord, I'm willing to take this step of faith. Lord, I know fear is right there, because I promise you, as soon as you say I'm willing to, fear is right there at the door. Do you know how all this can go wrong? You know, Debbie Downer shows up. This isn't going to work. Let me tell you all the reasons how it's not going to work, right? All of a sudden, rational thoughts start coming to mind, right? But if we want to see Jesus show up in our life in miraculous ways and do things that we've never seen him ever, faith is not figuring out. It's literally just putting our hope in him and saying, Lord, with expectation, you got this. So first thing we see is that Peter has this we see this next level miracle in the life of Peter because of expectation. And guess what? That same thing is for us today. What next level thing, God, do you want to do in my life? Listen, I love bragging on Jesus and what he can do. When I tell people things that God has done, it has nothing to do with my ability. It has nothing to do with, most of the time, it was being at the right place at the right time and just saying, I'm willing. You know what? God is actually looking for you to just do that. Just say, God, I'm willing. Whatever you want. Lord, I'm willing. I'm willing to trust you through this. I'm willing to walk through this. Let me give you the second thing. The second thing that we have to have in the willingness, in our willingness is to take risks. You know, risks are actually a part of it. But to Jesus, they're actually calculated risks. To us, they're just crazy. I mean, can you see the other 11 guys being like, Peter, you're out of your mind. And he's like, I got to risk something. I believe there was something so desperate inside of Peter, he said, I just got to see if this is real. You know, sometimes we get tired and we get to the place of like, I've seen it all. I've been there before. I've walked and I've gone through the motions, and I'm just so desperate to see something real that we say, I'm willing to risk it all. Lord, I'm just willing to just be crazy and trust you completely. When we begin to risk it all, what begins to happen is nothing happens if we fail to act. So we've got to be willing to risk something in this process. And Peter is like, can you imagine this feeling? He's willing to take a risk. But see, when you're working with Jesus, it's actually not really a risk. You see, miraculous things that Jesus wants to do in our life are not really risks. They're risks to us because they're unknown. They're risks to us because fear seems to be right there. They're risks to us because we say, I have, with all my knowledge and understanding, I am not sure this is the... Lord, are you sure? Are you sure this is what you want to do? And Jesus says, this is what I want to do here. Because when you risk something and you step out and you say, God, you have to act in faith, right? You have to. Nothing happens if I fail to act. And this is where I honestly think what happens is we stop expecting Jesus to do what only he can do, and we stop taking risks. And I'm not saying foolish risk where you've come up with a scheme of how you're going to solve your problem. I'm saying risk as in like he's calling you to something and you take this step of faith. And I don't know how, I don't know what you take. I'm convinced we've stopped doing those two things, and because we've stopped doing those two things, we stop seeing Jesus move in our lives. So Peter, I mean, we have so many questions we really should be asking God. The real question is, what's the next season of my life, and what's the next step that you want me to take? Lord, what's the next step that you have for me? What's the next step that you want me to take? God, what exactly do you want me to do, right? And it doesn't, some of those next steps aren't drastic, right? It's not moving or shifting. It may be just something simple in your workplace, in your family, in your response, in your attitude. You have to ask so and say, Lord, ask the question, Lord, what is the next step of faith you want from me? Maybe it's in your finances, taking a step of faith and trusting Him with more. Maybe it's in another aspect. Maybe it's in the fact that you say, God, I want to believe you like never before for supernatural healing in my body. I want to trust you for that. I want to take this next step of faith. Maybe your next step of faith is praying and believing with someone for a miracle to occur in their lives. But Peter had this expectation of what Jesus could do, and then he risked it. He then risked what he was willing to do. Like he was saying, Jesus, there's that expectation, there's risk. And then here's the third thing. The third thing was that there was focus, because breakthrough never comes from worry, but it does come through the choice to worship. There's a focus in it. You see, Jesus, Peter wasn't just out one day fishing and just said, hey, let me try this. You know what I mean? I love Brother Lloyd, right? But Brother Lloyd was just kind of having a moment, and it was like, hey, Jesus, if you're real, right? He just takes those steps. Peter wasn't out there just fishing one day and like, hey, I got a good idea. But in the midst of his crisis, in the midst of his back up against the wall, had nowhere to go, what are you going to do when fear is coming and you feel trapped? What did he do? He said, if it's you, I'm willing to come. And what did it say? It says he was focused on what? He's focused on Jesus, right? I mean, his focus was laser. I mean, he was dead on. He was like, Jesus, my focus and my trust, everything inside me is focused on you. When he shifted his focus, that's when things began to take place, right? Here's the truth is, if we want to see Jesus continue, if we want to see him do something in our life, we have to focus on him. Isn't it when we get our focus off that we do this thing called worry? I mean, we're all good at it, right? I mean, we're professional worriers, right? I mean, listen, we worry about things that we don't even know. What if this doesn't happen? What if I can't? What if this, we do the what ifs, and worry begins to come into our life, and all of a sudden worry begins to overtake us. And we begin to, literally planning out all these things, because if that doesn't happen, and we're worried and we're consumed and stressed out and anxious, and all of a sudden all these things are overtaking us. And there's this word called worship. Worship. When we make a choice to worship, what does that mean? Does that mean we show up on Sunday and raise our hands? No, worship is what the disciples did when Jesus got in the boat. What did they do? Man, Jesus, hey, you really got this. Like, you really can do anything. That's exactly what our worship is. Jesus, you got this. You really can do anything. You can solve the problem. Lord, I'm so thankful for who you are. I'm so thankful for what you've done and what you're going to do and what you've already done. Worship is just an attitude of focus on him. And we say, Jesus, Lord, in the midst of this, Lord, I determine to focus on you. See, let me just tell you this. No one ever worried their way into a miracle. Okay? Man, I'm going to tell you this amazing miracle that happened. I worried and I worried and I worried, and all of a sudden, one day, my problem was solved. Man, I was so consumed with worrying for months and months and months, and then all of a sudden, just like that, my worry got me there. I mean, we laugh, but the truth is not what we do. Because if our expectation of who he is and what he could do was there, if we were willing to take some risks, and then we were willing, and we stepped into a moment and said, Lord, we're focusing in on you. Here's the truth, is when I can tell when I'm talking with someone, and they're telling me something, I can tell that their focus isn't on Jesus. I can tell because they're consumed with worry and they're consumed with fear. I can also tell when someone's full of just, man, their focus is on, man, they're saying, man, I'm dealing with this, but man, I believe God has got something on the way. Man, I can't believe, man, he has been so good. I'm just like, man, you are focused on Jesus. That's what he's called us to do. Peter, who was a lot of things, right? One of the things he was in this moment laser focused on Jesus. And Jesus, as soon as Peter got his eyes off of Jesus, we know this, right? The waves overtook him. They were going to, for a moment, you think about it, he steps out, and there was a real storm going on. And he takes that first step, right? And he's there. And can you see it like a wave splashes him in the face? He's like, I got this. I'm focused on Jesus, right? And he gets out. He's like, I got this. I'm focused on Jesus. The waves are hitting him. He's like, this doesn't bother me. I'm focused on Jesus, right? And then he gets out a little further. He's like, I'm not focused on Jesus anymore. And I'm sinking. I just wonder if we begin to say, Jesus, my focus is off. Right now, my focus is off. Think about what you're walking through right now. Think about what you're saying. Jesus, I don't want to just come to you as the one that can just solve my problem. Lord, I want to come to you for you. I want to know you. Lord, I want you to lead and guide me. Lord, I want my focus to be realigned. We get our focus shifted so many times, and all of a sudden, we know what to do, but we have let the focus of our life shift and change. We've let the appetites of our lives begin to consume us. And then we say, well, Jesus, why haven't you done this? And he says, well, you're not focused on me. You're not expecting me anymore to do anything. There was a moment that you were convinced that I was the sole solution to every problem. And now you've been blessed, and now I'm not the sole solution to your life anymore. Now you've walked through some things, and you've figured some things out, and you think, man, I got this. And let me just tell you, when we begin to get our eyes off him, inevitably we begin to let fear in and worry in and doubt in. And let me just tell you, if you feed that, after a while, it will overtake you. Because no one ever worried their way to a miracle, and no one ever worried their way to a place of peace. No one ever worried their way to a place of destiny. There was no fruitfulness of worry. It didn't work that way. The problem didn't get solved because we worried and we said, God, I don't know. But in fact, when we instead begin to worship instead of worrying, when we begin to say, Jesus, I trust in you. It's you. Because Jesus is saying, hey, I want to take you on this journey. It's a little risky. You ever have those moments? Some of those moments that you're like, I don't know about this. We went to Israel, and this wasn't exactly like, jumping out of a plane or anything. But one of the little things that we got to do when we were in Israel, I guess it would be earlier. Was that this year? It was the last time we were there. Is they said, hey, we want to go through this tunnel. And I don't know if you noticed, I'm a larger guy, so tunnels, they're not in my wheelhouse of things I think are cool. Right? And they're like, hey, let's go through this tunnel. And I said, I don't know about this, right? I'm thinking, man, I'm kind of claustrophobic, and I get in, it'll be okay, right? And I get in there. And you ever do anything like you're just kind of a little like, when you think about it, you're like, I should talk myself out of this, right? And so we do it. It's like a 45-minute like trek through this little tunnel. And I kind of move my place. All right, I'm gonna do this. This would be fun. And I get in. Well, about half of this trip, I'm like hunched over like this, and there's like a tight wall. I'm thinking, Jesus, this could be bad. And I got Leslie in front of me, and I got to this place where I was like, I could really panic right now, and I'm just like focusing on her feet, and I'm like, and there's water. There's a foot of water, by the way, we're walking through, right? And it's like humid and all that, and I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure someone made a movie about this, And all of a sudden you get to the other side, and you're like, what in the world was wrong with me? Why did I say yes to this, right? But then you also have this moment of like, that was the coolest thing ever, right? We literally tunneled under. We were in a tunnel that ran under the city of Jerusalem. And it was all these, it's Hezekiah's and all these cool things. And after I got over the fact that I was like, what did I just do? It was like, that was the coolest thing ever. That was pretty cool. remember one time I decided to go on a mission trip, and it was actually a trip to Ireland, and I was supposed to be going with a few other people, just a few of us, and I ended up being the only one. And I showed up, here I am, I was like 20 years old, and I'm literally in the Dublin airport all by myself, and I'm thinking, what did I just agree to? Nobody else is there. I was so ill-equipped. It's a miracle I'm still here today. And I just remember in that moment, all of a sudden, I went through this week of just trusting Jesus, and thankfully, he led me to the right place, and I'm alive, and I'm here today. When I think back on that trip, that I went, and I was literally on my own, right? And I was just doing things that I thought, man, it was one of the most exciting things. After I got through, I was like, wow, that was the most amazing thing. Those are just two instances of something I did naturally. You probably have a story of something you did. Maybe you jumped out of an airplane, right? And you thought for a moment, that's a good idea. And then halfway down, you thought it was a bad idea. And then when you landed, you're like, that was an amazing idea. Here's the thing is, Jesus wants to take you on this journey. There's risk involved. But your expectation of what he can do should trump your knowledge of the risk factor. And when you have laser focus on him, he'll lead and direct you to places you never thought you would ever go, things you never thought you would ever do, and the miraculous things will begin to happen in your life. It really has to do with where our focus is. Because, listen, you can go through life knowing about Jesus, or you can go through life experiencing Jesus in your life. The difference is up to you. No other disciple got out of the boat. No other disciple even offered to get out of the boat. We would have all been there and been like, you got it, Peter. You got it. You're about to die. All right, get out of this, right? But it was the faith and the trust and the laser focus and the being consumed with, Jesus, I'm going to trust in you. I want to ask our team to come. I told you I'd keep it short here. But can I just tell you today, here's what I have found. That Jesus, man, Leslie and I have seen God do some stuff that when I step back, I'm like, my gosh, that was just amazing. And it wasn't our determination to see Jesus answer that particular problem. We just decided we're going to trust. We just decided we're going to take some steps of faith. We just decided that we had been comfortable for far too long. We just decided that, Jesus, we don't want to just pray so that you answer the prayer that we want to go on this journey with you. And we're just like you as well, right? You got problems, things that come up in life, family situations, relational situations, finances. Hey, listen, stuff is going to happen in your life. But you've got to make a decision. And in fact, you've got to predetermine a decision. You've got to predetermine what you're going to do. And then when the moment comes, you've got to act on that predetermined decision. Jesus, I'm going to trust you. That's so easy to say, isn't it? Jesus, I'm going to trust you. Peter even had a moment where he had to take, if you just tell me, Jesus, we say the same. Jesus, if you just tell me. I'm afraid that if Jesus actually told us what to do, it would scare us half to death. Because we would be like, I'm just kidding, Jesus, I really don't want to know. I'm really content where I'm at right now. Can I just ask you, do you want to see the Lord do some miraculous, supernatural signs and wonders in your life? I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're going to be. I know that we read about some of the signs and wonders, but I know that John tells us at the end of the book of John, there were things we didn't even record. That's what he says. There was some other stuff that would just blow your mind. Why is it important to trust the Lord and to go on this journey? Because just believing in a book is, oh Lord, I believe you're there, I believe. But taking a step of faith does something to solidify the trust that we have in him. Taking some steps and having this expectation, Lord, that you're the one. Some of you heard Miss Cheryl say, man, Jesus, just heal my body. And you're saying, Jesus, why won't you heal my body? All I can say is, where's your expectation of what he can do? What's your risk factor? What What are you willing to risk? And where's your focus? I don't know when he's going to do it. I don't know how it's going to look like. I don't know. Listen. But when you put those three things that we see in Peter's life into practice, into place, all of a sudden, you see a miracle that takes place. It's like putting the batter in, the ingredients that are needed, expectation, risk, and focus. I really don't know where you are. I don't know what's happening in your life. I don't know what you're journeying through. I don't know what your need is today. I don't know what your walk's been like lately. I don't know if you're walking through some difficult seasons. I don't know if you're consumed with worry. I don't know where you're at. But I've come to this place many times where I just said, God, I'm so tired of just going through the motion. God, I need something real. I need you to show up real. I'm willing to trust you. I'm willing to take steps of faith. I'm willing to do what I've never done before. God, I'm willing to, and that's exactly where he begins to move in my life. Look, we'll see everyone next week. We've got a few things. Read those announcements. And we're excited about the days ahead.